This is from Liwei in China. I think I never imagined my life would end up in the middle of a world war. I grew up in Hainan, not as a soldier, but as an ordinary boy who struggled in school and followed the path my family chose for me. When Japan invaded parts of China, life at home became uncertain and dangerous. My family thought I would be safer if I worked at sea. At 16, I joined British ships as a steward, serving food and helping with daily work on board. By 1942, the war was everywhere. German U-boats patrolled the Atlantic, sinking ships without warning. That year, I was assigned to the SS Ben Lomond, a British armed cargo ship sailing from South Africa to South America. We carried supplies, and the officers told us the ship's guns would protect us. I didn't feel safe. Some of the crew joked about submarines, but I stayed quiet. I had seen other ships lost already. Still, work was work, and a sailor didn't get to choose much in those days. I boarded anyway, hoping my luck would hold. The voyage started like any other. Long days, simple meals, and small conversations with the men around me. We talked about our homes, the war, and what we would do when it was finally over. I tried not to think too hard about the danger beneath us. The torpedo came without warning. A sharp explosion, fire, and men screaming in panic. The SS Ben Lomond tilted violently and began to sink. Within minutes, the ship was gone. The sea was full of debris, but the voices disappeared almost instantly. I clung to floating wreckage, coughing seawater out of my lungs. The silence was shocking after so much noise. I looked around and saw no one else. For the first time, I understood I might be the only survivor. I managed to pull myself onto a small wooden raft drifting nearby. It was barely 8 feet across, more a platform than a boat. On it were a jug of water, a few biscuits, some rope, and a lantern. That was all I had to stay alive. At first, I told myself rescue would come quickly. Maybe another ship would see me in a day or two. I rationed the biscuits, chewing slowly, and sipped water carefully. I repeated in my head, "Hold on, just a little longer." But the ocean gave me no comfort. The sun burned my skin, and the horizon stayed empty. Each day felt longer than the last. The water jug grew lighter, the biscuits smaller, and my hope started to sink along with them. I searched the raft again and again, hoping I had overlooked something. Every corner, every board, I checked, but there wasn't much. A small coil of rope, a flashlight, and a few scraps of wood, not nearly enough to live on. That's when I realized no one was coming soon. Survival would be on me alone. I pulled apart the flashlight, bending the thin spring into a hook. I cut strips of rope, tying them together into a makeshift fishing line. My fingers fumbled at first, but it gave me something to do besides panic. I told myself if I could catch even one fish, I could last another day. The first fish I caught nearly got away. It slipped in my hands, scales cutting my palms, but I held on with all the strength I had left. I bit into it raw. The taste was terrible, salty and bloody, but I forced myself to chew and swallow. It was the difference between starving and living. Rain became everything. When the sky finally opened, I stretched out my hands, my mouth, anything that could hold water. Drops hit my face, ran down my cracked lips, and filled the little containers I had. I drank until my stomach ached. Without storms, I wouldn't have lasted even a few weeks out there. Days blurred into each other. The sun burned my skin during the day, leaving me blistered and raw. At night, the cold cut into me as I curled on the wet boards. I lost any sense of time. To remind myself I still existed, I started talking out loud, even answering my own questions. Sometimes I spotted ships far away. My heart would pound as I waved and shouted, standing until I nearly lost my balance. Once, a ship passed close enough that I screamed until my throat felt torn, but it never slowed, never saw me. The silence after it left was worse than being hungry. The loneliness became heavier than the hunger. I thought I heard my father calling my name, or my mother singing the lullabies from when I was young. Once, I swore I heard the crew laughing nearby. I sat up, listening, but there was nothing, just the sound of waves hitting the raft, over and over. When birds landed, I lunged at them with my bare hands. I killed them quickly, drinking the blood for water and using the meat as bait for fish. It felt cruel, but I couldn't think about cruelty anymore. Every choice narrowed to one question. Would this keep me alive another day or not? Did you know? During World War II, over 30,000 merchant ships and nearly 5,000 naval vessels were sunk. Tens of thousands of sailors ended up in the water. Only a small fraction survived long enough to be rescued. Most never came home. My survival was not normal. It was an exception. I tried marking the days on the raft, scratching lines into the wood, but after a while, the numbers stopped making sense. Was it day 20 or 50? My body was weaker each morning, and I felt myself slipping into routine. Wake, catch food, drink rain, stare at the horizon, and wonder if I'd ever see land. My body started to change. My legs felt weaker each time I stood, and my hands shook even when I wasn't cold. I could feel myself shrinking, clothes hanging loose. My reflection in the water didn't look like me anymore. It looked like a stranger who had been out there too long. I began to see things that weren't there. Some days I thought I saw land on the horizon, only to blink and watch it vanish. Other times I imagined shadows moving across the water, like people walking toward me. The longer I drifted, the more I questioned what was real. One storm nearly ended it all. The raft shook so violently that I thought it would flip over. Waves crashed down, soaking me and dragging at the ropes. I tied myself to the raft with what was left of the line, praying the boards would hold. All I could do was hang on. When the storm ended, I felt broken. My arms ached, my chest hurt, and I lay flat, too tired to even sit up. I remember thinking it would be easier to just slip into the water, but something in me refused. I wasn't ready to give up, not yet. Rain returned after that storm, and it felt like a second chance. I collected what I could, my lips trembling as I drank. It wasn't much, but it gave me strength to keep going. Every drop reminded me I wasn't done fighting. By then, I stopped hoping for rescue. I moved like a machine, doing the same things every day, baiting the line, catching fish, drinking rain, resting when I could. I didn't think about tomorrow anymore. I just thought about the next hour, the next breath, the next mouthful of water. I lost count of the days completely. The marks I scratched into the raft blurred together, and I couldn't remember which week I was in. I felt like time itself had dissolved. All I knew was that I was still floating, and that had to mean something. One morning, I thought I was hallucinating again. I saw a boat in the distance, but I didn't trust my own eyes. I rubbed them, blinked, and stared. This time, it didn't vanish. A small fishing boat was moving closer, and I felt my chest tighten with disbelief. I tried to stand, but my legs failed me. I waved weakly and shouted until my throat burned. For a moment I was terrified they wouldn't see me, just like all the others. But the boat slowed, and men leaned over the side, pointing at me. My nightmare was ending. When they pulled me aboard, I could barely sit upright. I was alive, but I wasn't the same man anymore. I had survived 133 days adrift, but part of me was still out there on that raft, drifting in silence. Coming home didn't mean I ever truly left the ocean. The fishermen who rescued me pulled me onto their small boat. I remember their faces looking down at me, shocked at how thin I was. My clothes hung loose, my skin cracked, and I could barely lift my head to thank them. They gave me food and water, but even small sips made me sick. My body wasn't ready to eat like a normal man anymore. I learned later that I'd been drifting for 133 days. I thought it had only been a few weeks. Time had disappeared from me completely. Word of my survival spread, but I didn't feel like a hero. During the war, tens of thousands of sailors never returned after their ships sank. Most names were never written down. I survived, but I knew I was only one story among countless losses. Even after I recovered, Part of me stayed out there on that raft. I would close my eyes and hear waves hitting wood. I would wake up at night reaching for water. Surviving didn't erase what I had lived through. It stayed with me, quietly, every single day. If you've listened this far, thank you for hearing my story. Most men who went into the water during the war never came home. I was one of the lucky ones. What do you think survival really costs? Share your thoughts in the comments, and please subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this.